Hello everybody and welcome back to Reading for Vocabulary. I'm Brian Stuart. Well, we're on our last lesson for Unit 1 talking about architecture. In Lesson 3, we're going to be talking about a famous architect, right? We've talked about the architect as a job. We've talked about examples of famous architecture around the world. Now let's talk about a famous person who is an architect, and his name is Frank Lloyd Wright. We can see many of his buildings still around today. We're going to focus on learning about Frank Lloyd Wright. Well, who was Frank Lloyd Wright? What did he look like? There he is. He looks very thoughtful. Of course, this is an old picture. Frank Lloyd Wright lived a while ago. He's not living anymore. And he designed many famous buildings in America. He kind of looks like Einstein, right? Very thoughtful with the white hair. But anyway, this is him. He was a very famous architect. Now, what are some of the buildings that he left behind? This is an example of a house. This house was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. In fact, he designed and he had built many different houses. And if you're lucky, and if you are an owner of this house, you can be very proud. And of course, the house is quite expensive though. But they're very well designed and they're very easy to live in. They're very good design. They look and feel very nice. Also, Frank Lloyd Wright didn't just design houses, he designed lots of different types of buildings. Also, he designed different types of structures that are like monuments or statues. And this is an example of one of the monuments or statues that Frank Lloyd Wright created. So architects don't just create one type of building like a house or an office building. They do many different things. Architects can be very creative and build all sorts of different structures, and we'll read about that later. But before we get to the reading, we should go over the vocabulary. The first word we're going to study here is the word to describe something that doesn't go straight. Now, if a road goes straight, we say, okay, it's straight. It doesn't have any what? It doesn't have any curves, okay? If you see a road that goes to the right or it goes to the left, we say it has a curve. We can say there is a curve in the road. Be careful, slow down. If you're riding your bike, you can go fast if it's straight, but slow down on a curve. Okay, next word. Now, looks like this is she lives here, right? She's answering the door, and she is coming by. Why? She is someone who goes to a place for a short time. What do we call this person? We call this person a visitor. She is visiting her. She is visiting her, right? So she is a visitor to her home. Okay, if you come to my house, you are a visitor to my house. If I go to your house, I am a visitor to your house, a visitor. The next one, to change how someone thinks or acts. So if you want to change the way someone behaves, maybe you don't like their behavior, or maybe you want to improve their behavior, like for example in a sports game, you need to influence. You need to influence them. So the fact that mom and dad they like to play tennis, they like to play sports, that will influence their daughter. She will grow up and she will like to play sports too, because they're changing how someone else thinks or acts. You influence them. Who has influenced you in your life? Next one. The area around something. Okay, so if we say that like there's many buildings in a city, what do we call the area around the buildings? We call it the environment. It's also the area around us, right? We can have different environments. If we are in the city, we say we are in an urban environment. Urban means city. We are in the city. That's the type of environment we are in. But if we go to the country, then we say we are in a sorry, I was thinking about the pronunciation. Rural. Be careful because pronunciation's 힘들어. Rural, right? R and L. rural. Rural means you're in the country. So you can have an urban environment that's in the city, or you can have a rural environment, there's just one L, that's out in the countryside. So different environments. It's the area. What is your environment like? Next one, wow, very pretty. Looks like somewhere in Europe, maybe Switzerland. It's very pretty. If we talk about the land being very pretty, we can say it's beautiful. Also, another specific word for the land, we say it's scenic. Scenic. So beautiful, very pretty, it's beautiful. If we're talking about the land, the landscape, we say it's scenic. In Switzerland, it's very scenic countryside. It's very beautiful countryside. Next one. To have information about. If you have information about something, you know it. So what information do you have inside your head? That's the same as asking, what do you know? Now, know is an irregular verb, so we use it when we're talking in the past. Kwago, right? We say know, chigum, knew, chane, and known. Maybe for a long time. I have known that for a long time. So to know, knew, known. Did you know I was from America? Yeah, I've known that for months. Okay. I knew that before. Okay. And what do you know now? Know, knew, known. Okay, next one. Useful items in our home that we can move around. So there are many useful items. You can sit on them. You can put things inside them. They are containers. You can put things on top of them. So we're talking about chairs, sofas, tables, cabinets, useful items in our home but we can move them around. They're not fixed, right? This is a fireplace. When we're not talking about that, you can't move the fireplace, right? It stays there. But the things you can move around, we call furniture. Furniture. Be careful. When we say furniture, we mean everything. Furniture is non-count. Don't. No S at the end of furniture. Never say furnitures. It's furniture. There's a lot of furniture in this room. Or there's only one piece of furniture in this room. Okay? There's a little furniture or there's a lot of furniture. But don't use S. It's non-count. Okay. To finish doing something important. You finished doing something important, right? So you have achieved something. To achieve. What have you achieved in your life, right? You've graduated from different grades in elementary school. Maybe you're going on to middle school or starting high school. You've successfully achieved graduating from these different grades. You maybe got an A on a test, hopefully more than one test. You've made many achievements. Okay, so you have achieved something. Now, achievement, as one word, that's the noun. But achieve, just achieve, that's the verb. What did you achieve? I have many achievements. Okay, next one. Natural, like plants and animals. When we go to the store and we buy something, we want to look for maybe organic foods. Organic means they were made naturally. Think about that. We think, well, plants are natural. What are you talking about? The thing is, the idea there is that for a long time, many plants are grown using chemicals or man-made products, but sometimes this might be unhealthy. Those chemicals might not be good for our bodies. So now people are more concerned or are interested in foods that are grown completely naturally with no chemicals, no man-made chemicals. And we call that type of food organic. Nothing unnatural was used to make these plants. No unnatural chemicals, for example. Okay, next one. Different from everything else. So, and this is a good example because this is what we call a fingerprint. And if you think about it, I have a print on my finger, right? You have a print on your finger. But if we put them here side by side, they will be different. Why? Because everybody has a unique. Unique means one of a kind. You're the only person with that fingerprint in the world. Isn't that interesting? right? Of course, police use fingerprints to find criminals, right? So maybe it's not great, but of course you won't do anything bad. But think about that. The fingerprint that you have on your finger is different from your sister. It's different from your brother. It's different from your mom or your dad. You are unique. Only you have that certain pattern on your fingers. You are unique. And not just in fingerprints, but in many other ways too. Okay, the next word is this. Ojamayo, is my pronunciation okay? That's a difficult word for me to pronounce. But if you have to go to the bathroom, where we go to the bathroom, you use this device here. It's kind of like an appliance. What do we call it? We call it a toilet. So I need to use the toilet is very common. I need to use the toilet. Now some people, when they're in a department store or they're in a movie theater and you need to use a toilet, some people might say, excuse me, where is the toilet? Now in that case, they might be talking about the room. Maybe they don't have to use the toilet. Maybe they just want to wash their face or change their clothes, right? For some reason. In that case, you can also say, where is the rest room, or where is the bathroom? It's actually more polite to say where is the restroom than to say where is the toilet. So if you want to be polite, it's better to say where is the restroom. You can say bathroom, but most common for public places, we say, excuse me, where is the restroom? And then you can tell your friend, I have to use the toilet. But you know, it's more polite to say restroom. Anyway, but we use the toilet in the restroom. Next word. Okay, now in this word we have water, going from a high place to a lower place. It's a lot of water, and we're talking about a lot of water, not a little water, but a lot of water, like a river, right? Or a large stream. Going from a high place to a low place. And it's a very easy word when you think about it, because we're talking about water. What does the water do? It's falling. So we say it's a waterfall. Very easy word, right? Waterfall. Waterfall. It's not a verb, it's a noun. A waterfall. And there are many famous waterfalls in the world. Okay. Done with no mistakes. Wow, look at that. A+, big percent. 좋아요, right? So done with no mistakes, what do we call that? We say he did it perfectly. Now, ly means it's an adverb, and that defines the verb. So he did it perfectly. Because perfectly, we're describing how did he do it. Right? But we can also use just the word perfect. His score is perfect. Now in this case, it's an adjective because we're talking about a noun. We're describing a noun. His score is perfect. He did it perfectly. Okay, so that's the difference using ly. Are we describing the verb or are we describing the noun? How did you do on your last test? Did you do it perfectly? Did you have a perfect score? I hope so. Okay, let's move on. A hard cover for some sea animals. Do you like to go to the beach? On the beach, when you're walking along, you have the water and the sand, and right next to where the water comes, you can find many hard coverings. These are parts of animals, right? They're not stones. They're parts of animals. Animals made those. What do we call them? We call them seashells. And as you can see, they can be very beautiful and different designs. And some people like to collect them, okay? But try not to collect too much of them in some places because the next person who goes there, there's no seashells. So sometimes it's best just to leave things in nature and just look at it, appreciate it, but leave it there for the next person to come and enjoy it too. Okay, but seashells. Okay, next one. A long floor that goes up. Unfortunately, there are people who are handicapped. They cannot move normally. So we need to help them. And one way to help them is like this. If you look at this boy, you think, how can he go upstairs? If there's a building and there are only stairs in the building, it's very terrible for him. how does he get into the building? So many buildings will build these long floors that go up to help handicapped people who are in wheelchairs. We call these areas ramps. They're a ramp. It's a nice, gentle slope that you can go up in a wheelchair, or for other people, maybe older people or people who are injured and they have a hard time, they can go up the ramp more easily than other people who just climb up the stairs. Okay, the next one. The act of finding new information. So this is what scientists do all the time. They're trying to find new information. So they do research. Usually when we talk about research, of course, scientists do a lot of research, but many other people do research too, right? Professors at the university, if their subject is literature, they're researching the old text about maybe William Shakespeare or some other famous author from a long time ago. If you are an artist, you will do research by researching famous painters in history, or famous painters or new modern trends in painting. When you find new information, you are doing research. And be careful here, research is a non-count noun. People do research. We don't do researches, we do research. Okay, so the scientists have are doing a lot of interesting research. It's non-count. Don't put an S on the end of it, or ES. Okay, now let's review the words that we have just learned, and with some exercises. The instructions are: choose the word that best completes the sentence. These are our words. We need to find one, the best one, to put into these blanks. Number one. You should beep more in school. Somebody's always telling you this, right? Sorry. You don't work hard enough. Okay, so you should what more in school? You should influence more in school. You should influence your friends. That doesn't make sense. You should allow. That doesn't make, allow what? You should sleep more. Yes, that's it. You should sleep more in school. No, absolutely not. I'm sorry. I didn't say that. Shh. Okay. You should achieve more in school. That makes sense. Okay, that's the right one. Don't sleep more in school. Okay, I'm just kidding. You should achieve more in school. In other words, if somebody doesn't work hard enough, let's say your friend is a little lazy. They don't study hard enough. They get bad grades on their tests. You could say you don't achieve enough. You should achieve more in school. You don't work hard enough. Okay, so work harder, achieve more. Okay, number two. Now, don't forget number one. You should achieve more in school. Okay, number two. That lady is beep. She should be a movie star. When you watch the movies, when you look at the movies these days, normally movies aren't really real, right? The people in the movies are always very good looking. Right? Especially it's interesting when you look at movies that are based on a true story, right? And you look at the actors. The actors are always usually much better looking than the people who the story is based on, right? That's very interesting. But you know, that's part of entertainment. So what can we say? That lady is beyond. Beyond means she's further away. That doesn't make sense. She is beautiful. She's beautiful. That's probably the right answer. She is achieve. You can't say somebody is achieve. Achieve is a verb, not an adjective, so that doesn't make sense. That lady is perfectly. No, remember perfectly describes a verb, not a noun. So that wouldn't work. If you said that lady is perfect, that could be an answer, but this is perfectly, so it doesn't fit grammatically. The best answer, of course, is beautiful. Like I said before, that's probably your answer. That lady is beautiful. She should be a movie star. Because when we look at movies, usually the beautiful people are the movie stars. That's changing recently. Nowadays, there are more and more people who look like real people in the movies. And that's maybe a good thing too, because it really should be based on talent, not beauty. Okay, 3. The road, beep, up ahead. Be ready to turn. Remember when I talked about this? I said if the road is straight, you don't have to be so careful. But if the road does this, right, you have to be ready to turn, right? So what does the road do? Does the road influences? Does it achieves? Does it curves? Does it fits? The road of course, curves up ahead. The road curves, so be ready to turn. Remember, a curve can be to the right, orenchokoro, or it can be to the left, wenchokoro, or jaijan, right? Still learning my Korean. Okay, so it can curve either direction, to the right or to the left. Be ready to turn. Turn right or turn left. Okay, 4. Do you beep what the homework is for tonight? So if your teacher gave you some homework, right, and you were sleeping, you don't what? Oh, sorry, that's curves. You don't know what the homework is. So you ask your friend, do you know what the homework is for tonight? Do you know what the homework is for tonight? You wouldn't say, do you chance? That's not right. Do you believe? That doesn't fit. And do you research? No. Do you know? If you have the information in your head, you have the answer in your head, then you know it. If you don't have the answer in your head, you're going to try to find it, then you will research it. But we don't say, do you research? We say, do you know? Because we want to know, do you know the information or don't you know the information? Do you know what the homework is for tonight? And we can use many words here. Do you know how? Do you know where? Do you know when? Do you know why? Do you know who? Okay, so we can use lots of these question words here after do you know. And we want to know if you know that information or not. Do you know how to get to school? Do you know where I live? Do you know when the test is? Do you know why we're having a test? Do you know who our teacher is? Right? If you know this information, you can use these question words after do you know to find out that information from your friends. Okay, let's continue. No. Do you know what the homework is for tonight? Okay, next one, number 5. Many beep go to the new museum every year. So when you go to a museum, you go there for a short time. You don't live there, you don't stay there, you go there for a short time and then you leave. So what can we describe that situation? Many environments. Environments don't go to museums, right? Visitors, visitors go for a short time. That's our answer. Many visitors go to the new museum every year. Not faster, not seashells go to the museum. Maybe there might be an exhibit on the, about seashells, but they don't go there every year. That's kind of silly. Okay, let's move on to number 6. Where I live, the beep is cold and snowy. So we're talking about the area around you. It can also be just around you or around your house. It's the area in which you live is cold and snowy. That's the space that surrounds you. What word is that? The furniture is cold and snowy? Furniture can't be snowy. Furniture can be cold, but not snowy. The visitor is cold and snowy? That doesn't make sense. The environment, the environment, the space around you, like the country around you is cold and snowy. Maybe you live far in the north. The environment is cold and snowy, not the influence. So where I live, the environment is cold and snowy. Okay, let's move on to number 7. All the beep in our house is made of wood. So what do you have inside your house that might be made of wood? And it's usually made of wood. Think about your bed. Think about your chair. Think about your table, your desk, right? These things, what do we call these things? Do we call them inside? No. Do we call them visitors? No, people are not made of wood. Okay. Do we call them furniture? Yes, we call them furniture. All the furniture in our house is made of wood. Not all the beautiful. Beautiful is an adjective, not a noun. It doesn't fit. So the best one is furniture. All the furniture in our house is made of wood. And that's typical. Usually furniture is made of wood. Number 8, my teacher beep me in a good way. I work harder now. So if your teacher has done something to change your behavior so that you work harder now, what did your teacher do? Did your teacher visitor you? That doesn't make sense grammatically. Did your teacher achieves you? Again, that doesn't make sense grammatically. Your teacher knows you in a good way? That's a little strange. Your teacher influences. Your teacher influences me in a good way. It changed my behavior in a good way. Okay, so that's the answer there. My teacher influences me in a good way. Now I work harder. So people who inspire you, people who you want to follow or copy, they may influence you to change your behavior or the way that you think. Okay, well that wraps it up for the vocabulary section. Let's take a short break and we'll start with the reading section soon. Don't go away. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We've finished with the vocabulary section. Now let's see how those words are used in the reading part. Let's go over the reading part. The lesson, of course, is Frank Lloyd Wright, so we're going to read a short passage or a short article about Frank Lloyd Wright, the famous architect. Let's begin with Frank Lloyd Wright's mother. Her name was Anna Lloyd Jones. She had big dreams for her son. She put pictures of English churches on the walls of his room. She gave him special blocks to play with. She said he would grow up to build beautiful buildings. And he did. When we see this right away, one of the vocabulary words that comes to my mind is influence, isn't it? Frank Lloyd Wright's mother, Anna Lloyd Jones, wanted to influence her son to become an architect. She had big dreams for her son. She wanted him to build fancy buildings. She had big dreams, big goals. So how did she influence her son? She put pictures of English churches on the walls of his room. If you go to Europe and you look at their churches, actually many of them are called cathedrals because they're not really churches. I mean, they are churches, but they're more than just like a modern church. A cathedral is incredible. It's a huge building. It's very beautiful. It was built by hundreds of workmen over a long period of time and built out of stone and carved very beautifully. And many of these, of course, are in England. Some of the English churches, and of course French and Germany and Italian, Spanish, all of these cathedrals are very beautiful buildings. So she put these pictures of these beautiful buildings on the walls of his room. She gave him special blocks to play with. Of course, this is a long time ago. Special blocks you can think of now as Lego. I don't think they had Lego back then, right? But now if you want to play with special blocks, you buy a Lego set and you can build things. And if you're good at it, who knows? Maybe you should be an architect, right? A builder. She said he, her son, would grow up to build beautiful buildings. And he did. And there he is with his plans for building a new building there. So he was successful. He became an architect. So Frank Lloyd Wright, the man, the son in the previous passage, is known as the father of modern architecture. Now, in different fields like painting, music, a lot of especially creative fields, right? Sculpture, you have certain people who come along and their vision is very interesting and it changes the old traditional ways of doing things. And we can call those people the fathers of a new movement. Now, this is what Frank Lloyd Wright was to architecture. He didn't copy exactly what people did before him. He came up with new ideas. He had different creative ideas and he was successful in pursuing them. So he became like the father of modern architecture. Not architecture that was in the past, but architecture that is used now. And he was the one who kind of changed it and got everybody thinking about doing this new style of architecture. Interesting. Although he never finished college or even high school, he achieved more than his mother ever dreamed. I didn't know that about Frank Lloyd Wright, but it's interesting. Some very famous people that you think of, like Einstein, right? Einstein flunked his first math class. He didn't finish it. His teacher thought he was an idiot, right? So sometimes very famous, very creative people, maybe they don't learn in the traditional way. Right? Maybe they need a certain special way to learn, or they have ambition, they have smarts, but it's not in the same traditional way. Nowadays, we think finishing college is very, very important. And of course, it is important in life for most people. But it's true that some people don't need to finish high school or even high school to become very successful. In that case, those people must have like like a genius talent in some other way, or be very strong, have a strong determination to succeed. And that's a little bit of what Frank Lloyd Wright was about. He didn't finish college, he didn't even finish high school. But in spite of that, although he didn't do these things, he still achieved more than his mother ever dreamed, right? He did more than what his mother thought he could do. His first homes. So the first homes that he designed were called Prairie houses. Prairie refers to a part of the American landscape, usually in the Midwest, where there's very open spaces. We call them plains. And not a lot of trees grow there. It's just a lot of grass, and there's a lot of good earth for growing things. We call that the prairie. Now, the prairie houses were kinds of homes that were part of their environment. Okay? So a lot of times when people built these prairie houses, they were in the plains. There's no trees to build houses from woods. They built houses out of earth. Okay? That's a prairie house. So the kinds of homes that they're talking about, they used the word in a little different way, and they used part of the environment. These houses blended in with the environment. It didn't stand out. If you look at sometimes concrete apartment buildings, whoa, you see that it's very obvious it's not part of the environment. It stands out. But what Frank Lloyd Wright was doing was building houses that blended in. If you looked at it, you're like, is that a house, or is that part of the forest? Is that part of the earth, right? If they were in a forest, then they were made of wood. If they were in the plains, then they were made of dirt. And maybe they were painted or colored in the way to match the surrounding environment. If you go to Santa Fe, New Mexico, my brother and I were driving into Santa Fe one time, and we're driving along. We didn't realize for about 10 minutes we were in the city. We didn't know. If you look around, it just looked like hills. And we're like, look, is that a house? Are those houses? Because the color of the houses was the same as the color of the hills, and it was the same material. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting idea to make buildings look like they're part of the environment. That way, we feel that they're very natural. Okay? Anyway, that's what he was doing. That was his idea. If they were in a rocky area, then they were made of stone. This was called organic architecture, so it looks natural. Before we talked about the food, right? The food that is made by natural means, not by man-made processes, unnatural chemicals. It's the same idea here that we're using for houses. If you build the house from the same materials that are surrounding and make it look like the surrounding environment, you say it's an organic house. Okay? Or in this case, organic architecture. Now, Wright's architecture was unique. Remember, unique means one of a kind. Nothing was done like this before, right? He didn't follow people. He was one of a kind, unique in many ways. He designed the furniture, floors, windows, and even the toilets in each of his homes. That was unique. Before, architects would just build a building and they would leave the furniture and the windows and the toilets to somebody else, maybe the builder or the construction company. They would go to the store and, oh, they need a toilet, so they just grab a toilet and put it in there. But Frank Lloyd didn't do that. He designed everything in the house. Right? He thought about not just what the walls and the rooms, the space inside. He also thought about, well, what are the windows going to look like? What is the furniture that is going to be placed in this room? What will the bathrooms, the toilets look like? Okay, he thought about everything, and that was a new way of thinking about architecture. Earlier architects only designed the outside of the house. Wright designed everything inside it too. So that's just what I explained, right? He didn't think just about the exterior of the building or the structure of the building. He thought about the entire building, everything inside that building as part of a whole. And that's why his designs became very famous and very popular, because it all fit together. He also liked Japanese art and thinking. So Frank Lloyd Wright was influenced not just by his mother, but also by Japanese art and thinking. He used many Eastern ideas in his designs. Eastern has to do with Eastern Asia, right? Japan, Korea, China. Eastern Asia. So he looked at the design in these countries and he thought, wow, that looks cool, that looks interesting. I want to use that in my designs too. So he got influenced by Eastern ideas in his designs. And maybe we can see some of that. This is a museum that he designed. He didn't build it, but he designed it, and it was built according to his plans. Okay? Traditional Western design is, square and blocky, right? But now he's using very gentle curves and very interesting. It almost looks like a Japanese pagoda almost right here. So he's using Eastern ideas in his designs for his buildings. His most famous home, right? Because Frank Lloyd Wright, he designed many kinds of buildings, like a museum, office buildings, but he also designed homes, and he's very famous for designing houses and homes. His most famous, number one most famous home is called Falling Water. So his houses have names, right? A lot of architects build houses, they're all the same. They build a whole neighborhood. But Frank Lloyd Wright built one house at a time. He didn't build neighborhoods, he built unique houses. But this house, the home, was built in the forest, right over a waterfall. Sounds cool. It fits perfectly into its environment. You can't tell where the house ends and the ground begins. So if you look at the house, it's very hard to see where the ground, the dirt ends, and the man-made structure, the house, begins. We can say it fits perfectly into, we can also say it blends in to the environment. It blends into the environment. The story I told you about my brother and I driving into Santa Fe, New Mexico, the houses in Santa Fe blend in with the surrounding hills. It's hard to tell where the hill ends and the house begins. Okay. Wright also designed the Guggenheim Museum in New York City. It is shaped like a seashell. The inside is open and a long ramp. Remember that ramp that we talked about. Not stairs, but gentle incline. A long ramp curves around the inside, up the walls. Visitors walk up the ramp slowly, looking at all the beautiful art. There's been a few movies that have been shot. I don't know if you've seen movies, but sometimes there's one movie I remember where they had a gunfight, right? And they were shooting at each other over the inside. Of course, they didn't really use bullets, of course, but they used the inside of the building as the setting because it's a very famous place. And it's a very interesting inside area. So the Guggenheim Museum, very famous building. If you look at it, it's shaped like a seashell, right? Like the rotating seashell that we saw before in the vocabulary section. The inside of the building is very open, lots of open space. A long ramp. You can walk up slowly and take a look at the exhibit. You don't feel like, this first floor, second floor, third floor. It all seems like one continuous exhibition. Visitors walk up the ramp slowly, looking at all the beautiful art. So it doesn't seem like you're going upstairs. It's like you're walking along and you have lots more room and lots more space to look at the art. So you're not worried about, is the second floor or third floor? Don't worry about that. Just concentrate on the art. And that's the intention. So, do you want a Frank Lloyd Wright house? Many people do, okay? Well, today they are very expensive and hard to find because Frank Lloyd Wright, he only built a certain number of houses. People like them, they're popular, so they become very expensive. Sometimes over time, houses fall apart. They may have been destroyed, so it's harder to find them and it's very expensive to buy one. But there is another way to get a Frank Lloyd Wright house. You don't have to find a house that he had built, right? Wright influenced many architects. So Wright's ideas influenced other architects to follow him. So what can we do? Frank Lloyd Wright, died in 1959, right? That's a long time ago. That's more than 60 years ago now. But his ideas are still alive. And that's the thing about famous people. Famous people, people who change fields, people who make a change in society, they may die a long time ago, but their ideas and their changes live today. And that's maybe one way that people can achieve immortality. They can, their ideas live long after they have died. So even though Frank Lloyd Wright is dead, he's gone for more than 60 years, we could still get a house similar to the one that he bought. How? Because we can do some research. Maybe someday we could build our own Wright house, right? We can copy his designs for his house, and we can build a house similar to the one that he built. And that way we have a Frank Lloyd Wright house, a house that was built according to his creative ideas. And that's how we could maybe, hopefully one day, afford to have a house that was built like Frank Lloyd Wright would build it. Okay, so that's a good idea right there. That's an interesting idea. By the way, if you become an architect, you could also be influenced by Frank Lloyd Wright and build many houses based on his designs as well. Not just houses, but other types of buildings as well. Okay, let's take a look at the reading comprehension. Again, our first question is always about what is the main topic of the reading passage. This story is about what? A dreaming mother, a mother who dreams big for her son. Yeah, we talked about that. That was in the beginning of the story, but that's not the main topic, right? It's not the main topic. That was just a small part of the story. This story is about prairie houses. Again, yes, we did mention prairie houses, but that was just a small part. Just one short part of a sentence. It's not the whole topic. It's not the main topic. This story is about a famous architect. Yes, we talked about Frank Lloyd Wright. We talked about his mother. We talked about the houses that he built. We talked about one of the museums that he built. We talked about the way that he changed architecture. In fact, the whole article was about a famous architect. That was the main subject. That is the answer. The Guggenheim Museum, again, like A and B, that was only a small part of the reading passage. So the correct answer is, this story is about a famous architect. Who was he? Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, number 2. Frank Lloyd Wright was different from other architects because. So in what way was Frank Lloyd Wright, how did he differ? What made him unique from all the other architects who were working before him and at the same time as him? What made him unique? How was he different? Because he designed the outside of the home? No. As we talked about before, other architects designed the outside of the home too. That wasn't unusual. Because he played with special blocks as a boy? No, many kids play with special blocks. That didn't make him different from other architects. Maybe they also played with special blocks as kids. Because he designed everything inside the home? Aha, that's the answer. We talked about that. What made Frank Lloyd Wright special or different from other architects was because he was concerned with the design of the furniture, the windows, even the toilets in the bathrooms, right? He thought about everything inside as well as outside of the home. That's what made him different. And D had big dreams. Well, all architects have big dreams. So the answer is Frank Lloyd Wright was different from other architects because he designed everything inside the home. Not just outside, but also inside. Okay, number 3, falling water. Falling water is a name, so it's in this special type here, falling water. Falling water is a name of what? It's a name of a home. So falling water, beep, its environment. So remember, falling water is the name of that home that he built that was built over a waterfall. What is special about that house? What did we talk about? It's different from the environment. You can easily tell the difference between the home and the environment. No, that's the opposite of what we're looking for. Falling water fits into its environment. Fits into, right? That's what we're talking about here. Remember I said blends into. That's another way to say it. So that's the correct answer. It changes its environment? It changes the environment? No, it fits in, it blends in. It achieves its environment? That doesn't make sense. You can't achieve an environment. That just doesn't make sense. So the correct answer is falling water fits into its environment. It blends in. It's almost like a chameleon. You know that lizard that changes color as it's crawling along the branch. It fits into the environment. It's hard to tell where the environment ends and the house begins. Number 4, Wright's mother believed he would be a great architect. So therefore, as a result, what did she do? She gave him pictures of English churches to play with. She gave him big dreams. She gave him special blocks to play with. Or she grew up to build beautiful buildings. Okay, now obviously D is incorrect because so she grew up to build beautiful buildings. That means when she was a child. But if she was a child, she didn't have a son. So that doesn't make any sense at all. Okay, but take a look at number A. A might be a little tricky because remember pictures of English churches. We talked about that. So did she give him the pictures to play with? No. She gave him the pictures. Well, she didn't really give him the pictures. She put the pictures up on his walls. So he didn't play with it. So you might be confused because this looks like the answer until you get here, to play with. He didn't play with the pictures, right? No, they were put up on the wall. So A is not correct. So be careful of that one. B, she gave him big dreams. Well, it didn't say that in the passage. She had big dreams, but it didn't say that she gave him big dreams. So that's not right. But C is a better answer. She gave him special blocks to play with. That is specifically exactly mentioned in the passage, so that is the best answer, right? So the right answer is Wright's mother believed he would be a great architect, so she gave him special blocks to play with. That's specifically what was talked about in the article. That is the answer. So, this reading passage and this entire lesson was about a famous architect, and his name was Frank Lloyd Wright. And during the reading passage, we learned a lot about Frank Lloyd Wright. We learned about how he grew up and how his mother influenced him to become a great architect. He changed the field of architecture. When he built his buildings and especially his homes that he built, that he's most well known for, or is most famous for, the homes that he built, even though he did build other structures. But he changed architecture because he didn't just think about the outside of his buildings, he also thought about everything inside the buildings and how that all fit together. And he was the father of modern architecture because he was one of the first people to do this. And he really concentrated on making a great design. Now, we may think, wow, it'd be great to live in a house like that. How can we? Do we have to go find a home that he built? No, because they're very expensive and they're hard to find. But we can use his ideas, his plans, to maybe one day build a house of our own that's designed the same way that Frank Lloyd Wright would have designed that house. So anyway, that's something interesting. And also, if you become an architect, maybe you will be influenced by his ideas and build buildings and homes like he did. Anyway, that's a good thing to think about. We'll leave you with that, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.